أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
الحمد لله وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له. Gradually we are realizing that we have only one function in this world. We are here, we were created for one purpose, and that is to recognize God as the only master, the only king, and to worship him, serve him alone, without any partners. The first two verses of Surah 67 tell us that the whole purpose of creation is to test the human being. Let us look it up, they're very important. 67, 1 and 2. 4 or 5. Most exalted is the one who possesses all kingship. He is omnipotent. He is the one who created death and life in order to test you and distinguish the righteous among you. He is the Almighty, the Forgiver. Because death is a new creation. Initially there was no death. It was God and the angels. There was no death. And then one of the angels had the rebellious ideas. Satan wanted to be a partner with God. So God wants to show Satan and to show the angels that there are creatures who never see God but will worship God without need for a partner. The whole idea of our existence here in this world is that God does not need a partner. And we fulfill the purpose of our life if we worship God without a partner, without idolizing Muhammad or Jesus or Mary or saints or anything or anyone. This is the whole idea. And we want to come to a certain knowledge that will stick with us no matter what happens. Under any circumstances, we will have that knowledge that God is the only master. Our motto is God alone. This is our motto. And we put it here on this side. We realize that the only salvation is in worshiping God alone. That you don't think that anything or anyone can benefit you or harm you, except in accordance with God's will. Can we move up somewhere? What I was doing the last few khutbahs was to bring to us awareness about the greatness of God, how great God is. And this is a continuation of the same subject. I tried to imagine with you the 7 universes, how vast this universe is, being the smallest and innermost of 7 universes, and how all 7 universes are in God's hand. So I think I will move on to the next issue, the slide. I'm going to share this on. Can you situate yourself where you can see the screen? We must be different from anyone else in that we must acquire full awareness of the greatness of God. And what we have here is an actual picture, thanks to Gatul. He made a slide from the picture that you've seen before. This is an actual picture of the planet Earth from 100,000 miles. 100,000 miles is nothing. 250,000 miles is the moon. 4 million miles to get to the sun. The sun is 4 million miles away. And these are all small distances within the solar system, which is a small component of the Milky Way galaxy. The whole solar system within the Milky Way galaxy is like a speck of dust in this room. The Milky Way galaxy is like this room, and the whole solar system like a speck of dust. And there are 1 billion galaxies, 1,000 million galaxies. And all of them are in the smallest universe. Now, when you look at it like this, who's holding it? Who's holding this in space? Do you know where you are? Can you imagine where you are? Let's get closer, closer. You can see Saudi Arabia here. This is Mecca right here. This is the Red Sea. The Arabian Peninsula is right here. My hometown is right here. Egypt is there. Can you see my mother? You met her? Sitting there. I just want to bring to our minds how minute we are and how great God is. And the insignificance of the human beings that are being idolized. You see, right in this spot is Jerusalem, right here. And in this spot, 2,000 years ago, a man lived for 33 years, which is a blink of an eye, as far as history is concerned. Jesus lived in this little place here, on this small, tiny planet. And did the people idolize him? My notice here is your head covered half the earth. That's how small it is. And right here in Mecca and Medina lived Abraham and Muhammad for a very brief period of time. Yet the people idolize him. They treat him like a god. They cannot stand to mention God alone without mentioning Muhammad beside him, or Jesus, or Mary, or some saint. We have to think, now who's holding this? It's hanging. Thanks a lot. You're helping me. We're trying to prove that the earth is very small. This is all of Africa right here. This is the Mediterranean Sea over here. And this is all of South Africa right here. The South Pole. Now the United States is on the other side. And you happen to be standing sideways according to this picture. Like this, you don't feel like you're like this, do you? But you can see, back to the question, who's holding this in space? Who's holding the solar system? The sun with its brightness, its heat. God is holding it. The Quran teaches us that God is holding the earth and the sun and the Milky Way galaxy, and the billion galaxies, the billion trillion stars. God is holding them. The Quran says, if anyone should hold them, they will tumble in space. If he doesn't hold the earth and the heavenly bodies, they will all tumble in space. You see, this is an actual picture from 100,000 miles away, and this ball here is hanging in space, teeming with life, including you. And God is holding it. We have to think of the greatness of God and the insignificance of the human beings that are being idolized. When you go out in the street at night and take a picture at random, you have 10,000 stars. Now this is a very small portion of the sky, isn't it? Very small. You have to make a complete 360 degrees, is it? Circle. And take picture. I mean, this is a very minute portion of the sky that the camera saw. Yet if you count there, on the average, you count 10,000 stars. On the average. Just take a picture of that. Okay, now let us tilt the lights. We're trying to understand the greatness of God and the insignificance of whatever they're trying to idolize. look up Surah 5, verse 75. Surah 5, 75. Page 79. It says, Christ, the son of Mary, was no more than a messenger, like the messengers before him, and his mother a saint. Both of them used to eat the food. All right? Now remember that statement. Then we go to 21:8. It talks about all the prophets. 21:8. That's page 219. Describes the prophets as, we did not give them bodies that required no food, nor were they immortal. And then we move on to 25:7. Surah 25, verse 7. It says, and they said, how come this messenger eats the food and walks in the markets? How come he has no angel with him preaching? And in the same surah, verse 20, all the messengers we sent before you used to eat the food and walk in the markets. What does this mean? They used to eat the food. See, the Quran is very polite, but I'm not as polite as the Quran. What happens when you eat the food? You digest it, and I didn't say anything. See, these are the people they idolize, don't they? They idolize Jesus and Mary and Muhammad. And God tells in the Quran that all of them used to eat the food and walk in the markets. You had to go to the market to buy food, clothes, and toilet paper. But they didn't have toilet paper. They didn't even have that. They had rocks. Rocks. And according to Hadith, you have to use 3 rocks. See, the people who idolize the Prophet are the ones who are most disrespecting of him or any other prophet. They didn't have water, didn't have toilet paper, they have to use rocks. So you go to the market to buy toilet paper. In those days, they must have bought rocks. If they have guests, they have to be in multiples of 3, you know. Say, get me 9 rocks, will you? If you have a big party, you know, it'll be 18, 27. You give.
But they can reuse them.
See, if anybody is supposed to idolize anybody, they in those days are supposed to idolize us. Because we're a lot cleaner. You know, they used to walk around unclean. They didn't have perfume either. That's really fast. We're trying to understand the insignificance of the human being. And the Quran deliberately tells us that all the prophets used to walk in the markets and eat the food. Jesus, Mary, the saints, Muhammad. You can see the stupidity of idolizing them. And this is one of the things that the majority of the human beings in the hereafter will discover, how stupid they were. What is the ugliest animal you can think of? The pig. The pig is about the ugliest animal. And God made it haram. He said, don't eat pork. So in the hereafter they will say, how stupid, you know. I disobeyed God to go to this ugly creature. Because of this ugly creature. Or I idolize this insignificant human being who lives here for a blink of an eye. A human being who had needs, who had to go to the market, eat the food, and had headaches and stomach cramps. We have to constantly be aware of the greatness of God everywhere we go. Because Satan will always take advantage of your unawareness. Anytime you're unaware, Satan will try to make you forget. And with this awareness, you must be aware also that when you appreciate God and worship Him alone, God promises that He will make you a king or queen on earth. That everything will go your way. That nothing ever bad will happen to you. And these are no exaggerations. I can give you practical examples right in this month that include all of us. Because this is about the only place that worships God alone, that I know of. The word is spreading, alhamdulillah, as you will see in the second khutbah. But it is spreading painfully slow. There is a lot of resistance on the part of Satan. But like God says in the Quran, they want to put out God's light, but God will perfect His light against the will of the idol worshippers. So we have practical examples right here. And we have to thank God first before we talk about our group and how perfect it is, inshallah. Because we owe it to Allah. And on the day of judgment, the people in heaven will say, thank God who guided us to this, for we could not be guided without His guidance. When we worship God alone, God fulfills His promise to us, being kings and queens on earth. And you have to know that. You must believe that without the slightest doubt or hesitation, because it is part of believing in God. You know the Quran is truth. We have physical proof that it is the word of God. And God says in it, I promise you, if you worship me alone, this is in 24:55. God says, I promise you. I'm gonna say it literally. God promises those who believe among you and lead a righteous life, that He will make them kings or queens on earth. And that is because, repeated at the end of the verse, they worship me without any partners. We know that Muhammad and Jesus and Mary are insignificant human beings. They are helpless, powerless. They are dead right now. They can do nothing. The Quran repeats that Muhammad cannot benefit you or harm you. In fact, it goes further. I can say I cannot benefit myself or harm myself, except in accordance with God's will. You cannot even kill yourself unless it is God's will, so don't try. But there are people who try to kill themselves. We know one right here in this mosque. I mean, not one of us, but a relative of one of us. And she shot herself in the head. The bullet went through her head, but she's still alive. She's all right. She couldn't kill herself. So nobody can benefit you or harm you except God, or except in accordance with God's will. Tubu ila Allah. Repent and think of God's greatness. Be aware of it always. Alhamdulillah wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah. This opening statement of every khutbah says, praise be to God. I bear witness there is no God except He alone. He has no partners. In this second khutbah, I'm going to talk about a number of subjects, kind of scattered, but I'm saying that the message is spreading. I meant to bring letters that I have on my desk to read to you. Let me get just one letter and come back. I always do that, don't I? Come and get trademark. Our motto is God alone. And we follow the word of God alone. We don't follow the words of men. This fellow from India writes to me every week. He writes, I sent him, or he got a Quran, or I sent him a Quran, one of our translation. And you can see the progression in his letters from an adamant Hadith and Sunnah supporter to this letter. This is the last one of them. One of the letters. I should have kept all of them. I didn't keep all of them. Well, would you believe this is the wrong letter? It is the same guy, but he sends a letter every week. And some of you saw the letter before this one, where he said that because they cannot worship God alone, they don't want to stick to Quran alone, so the nominal Muslims go to Hadith. Can you give me one more chance to go get the other? Get the other guy. This is them. See, they look alike. and it comes, sure enough, once a week, at least once a week. Well, I like the statement he made because, and it's very satisfying to see that people are coming to the truth. Because Allah alone is commemorated in the Quran, the nominal Muslims turn away from it and go to Hadith and Sunnah, which upholds Muhammad and Allah both in competition to each other. So you can see that he's come a long way, and he considers now going to Hadith and Sunnah as being a nominal Muslim. That's one. 2 weeks ago, a friend of mine who just came from Egypt, he called and he said that the Union of Islamic Banks printed 1 million copies of my summary of the summary that you see here. I have an Arabic summary that's about 10 pages. So they printed 1 million copies of it, and the biggest contractor in Egypt, his name is Ahmad Ahmad. And some of you watched the program about Sadat about a month ago. He was on that program. He printed 1 million copies also, distributing them. Now, they don't send a penny to me for this, but which is better because Allah rewards, God rewards for anything you do. One more subject is that starting tomorrow after dhikr, we're going to start our Arabic lessons. Because usually after dhikr, we're kind of intoxicated and we do silly things. Like have pillow fights. Those of you who don't come to dhikr are missing out. So instead of the pillow fights and chasing the kids around, we'll have Arabic lessons starting tomorrow. So those of you who will come tomorrow, bring a notebook. And we're going to learn the Arabic from the Quran. Finally, in this khutbah, I want to talk about the names. Our names. As it turns out, now this is a personal opinion. And you may like it or not like it. But the Quran talks about the adoption and orders us to keep the children's original names. I was listening to the radio the other day. They had some psychic on the radio, and she was saying that the name that you're born with, not that I believe this John, but she can tell you things that from the name you're born with. But that reminded me of this subject, which this is a position that I held all the time. And I wrote about it, and a lot of people didn't like it. So it will be your choice. But the Quran advocates that we keep our original names. Another thing, we had, you remember, there's an Iranian fellow, and he had a wife and a daughter for 12 years old. And she sat here and she said, what are the names of the people here? And somebody told her, this is Rashid, this is Din Mahmoud, this is Masuda, this is Iman, this is Layla, this is Fatima, this is Sanobar, this is Maryam, this is Latifa, this is Samira, this is Rahima. And the girl said, oh, this place is not for me. Because her name was, what was her name? Huh?
Her name was Judy or
Shirk.
Sharon, yeah.
So that's another point, because people will think that Islam is for people with strange names. Because the names are not familiar names to them. And whatever I wrote about this subject, I said, I don't see why a George cannot be Muslim. I mean, after all, I think there will be more Muhammads in hell than than Georgians, maybe. So, as far as I'm concerned, I would like to call, well, Rashid changed his name officially. I'd like to call Iman Lisa and Layla Kathleen and Fatma Barbara Jean and Latifa.
I'm getting
No?
because
Samira will be Debbie and Wali will be Otis and Dawood will be David. Rahima will be Loretta. Yeah.
what difference is there legally or not? Legally is totally what? If you write it down in court, you're going to start calling me what I want to call.
Well, anyway, this is your official name. It becomes your name. But, huh? Yes. I mean, it seems like the Quran advocates that we keep the name that we're born with.
What if you don't like the name you were born with?
See, that's what if you don't like your height? You know, it's something you inherit.
Actually,
Yeah, that
even more
keeps changing.
complicated. Even more complicated.
Yeah. Like I said, it's a personal opinion. And, we'll have to. Our affairs are based on consultation. So, yeah.
I know for myself, being in America during slavery, a lot of us were just given. That's one of the reasons why I changed my name. There's a lot of reasons why we changed that name. Because these were names that were just given to us.
Yeah.
The plantation.
Yeah, but it really doesn't matter, you know, because I heard the theory of that it's a slave name, the master, the name of the master from the old times, and so on. So you'll have your opinion, but it seems like, yep. If we look at it carefully and we find that the Quran says, "Do not change your name," then we have no choice.
But isn't this
But it is a matter of discussion.
referring to the father's name, which would be the last name, really?
Yeah. The adoption is to
So
keep.
the first name is kind of arbitrary.
Yeah, there are many angles to this situation. Because according to the present system here, where people, the adopted children have get the name of the adopting father, theoretically, a person can marry his sister. Because children are scattered, they have different names, and then these two meet in college. I don't know if it's my imagination or not, but it seems like people who look alike get together. And here's I mean, the boyfriend and girlfriend, they really look alike, a lot of them at least.
I don't look anything like my wife.
But she's lucky, Rashid. Right, I mean, that too. That's right. In the Middle East, we never change, the wife doesn't change her name. You don't mind the joke, do you? This is a standard
Look
joke.
at Jamila, she looks like you.
She's beautiful, alhamdulillah. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات. عباد الله ان الله يامر بالعدل والاحسان وايتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. اقم الصلاه. a description rather than a name.
The Bible, even if they read the Bible, it's incomplete because it was edited in 300 AD by a council of people.
Even in spite of all the corrections and distortions, if they follow the Bible as it is printed today, they will be Muslims. With all the distortions and deficiencies and additions.
It says that you're supposed to worship Jesus in the Bible.
No. No, it doesn't. No, never does it say that Jesus is God.
It says that the blood of Christ is the Lamb of God who washes away all sin, and that only through Jesus can you come to the Father. Right out of the Bible, word for only those who come, only through Jesus can you go to the Father.
What?
It's right out of the Bible.
Right, that's a mistranslation. No problem.
If you're talking
No,
about what
the Quran
language
says
is
the
it?
same thing. It says, whoever obeys the messenger obeys God. Which is the same thing in the Bible. Because, now you have to take the whole thing in totality. Because the Bible says, I'm going to put my words in his mouth, and you must listen to my words that he utters. So if you disobey those words, you're disobeying
See,
God.
they tacked down to the...
Now, when they translate it from the Aramaic to the Hebrew to the Greek to the English, you can see how it evolved into what you think it says.
When they tacked down the letters of Paul, which were written in Greek, most
Right.
of them, that's
Yeah.
where most of the, that's like the
Exactly.
It's like the Hadith that was put on at the
Exactly.
same time. Most of that, if you listen to these guys on Sunday, going on
Yeah,
about
but
Jesus,
still,
they
yeah.
love to quote Corinthians. They love to quote Hebrews. They love to quote the letters of Paul. Who was Paul? Paul never even met Jesus. He was never
Yeah,
even
this-
around when the event happened.
Exactly.
But they take the words of Paul and his letters to his buddies in Corinthians and Rome and all these places. They put that on the same level as the words of Jesus or the words of Moses or the words
That's
of
exactly true. So actually, the Christianity of today is Paulism, not Christianity.
Exactly.
But if you take the Bible in totality, you see that it says that Jesus is not God, and says that we are all children of God. There's no such thing as the only begotten Son. And if they take the whole thing in totality, they will be Muslims. But they don't follow the Bible. These verses here in 165, 160, 167 are identical to Matthew 7:23. Free mind, prerequisite for salvation. دي المهول ودي لا.
O people, eat from everything that is lawful and good, and do not follow the steps of Satan, he is your ardent enemy, to direct you towards vice and evil, and to invent lies and attribute them to God. Then, when they are told, follow only God's commandments, they say, we follow what we found our parents doing. What if their parents lack the understanding and guidance? The example of such disbelievers is that of a parrot. They repeat what they heard without understanding. Deaf, dumb and blind, they fail to understand. O you who believe, eat from the good things we provide for you, and be thankful to God. Refuse to worship Him alone. He only prohibits for you animals that die of themselves, blood, the meat of pigs, and animals sacrificed in any name other than God. However, if one is forced to eat this without being malicious or deliberate, then he incurs no sin. God is forgiver, merciful. Those who conceal God's revelations in the Scripture, seeking a lowly material gain, are eating fire into their bellies. God will not speak to them on the day of resurrection, nor will He sanctify them. They will suffer painful retribution. It is they who choose the straying instead of guidance, and the retribution instead of forgiveness. Consequently, they will have to endure the hellfire. That is because God has sent down the Scripture truthfully, and those who dispute the Scripture are in manifest defiance. Well, I don't know what I can say about this. It's so clear. Actually, as Muslims, we can conclude from what I've read that aside from those things that are prohibited, any rule adding certain foods and so on made by human beings without authority from Allah are in the long run the work of Satan himself. And this is found all over the world. I know, as a matter of fact, that in India and Pakistan, especially among the Hanafi madhab, they do not eat shrimps, they do not eat lobsters, they do not eat crabs. Well, they're missing something.
That's for sure.
And also this idea of the holiness of certain animals like cows and so on, in the long run this is not helping many people. I can imagine that due to doctor's orders, maybe meat, too much meat might be bad for certain people, especially if they reach a certain age. But in India, I've been in India maybe 10, 15 times. I've seen cows go to the marketplace. They're not at all touched. They wander. They walk among the people. And these cows have very long tongues. When they see vegetables, they stick out their tongues and then grab all the food. And no one harms any cow. They just push them gently, which is nice in some ways to see how people are gentle to animals. But the seller becomes poorer. And
The cow doesn't pay, does it?
no. But if a human being steals one batinjan, one eggplant, they beat him up and so on. I think that this is, I don't know who invented this strict vegetarianism as a religious rule. Anyhow, in Southeast Asia, we have a lot of prohibitions too. May I add also, among some Hanafis, they will not eat these, what is here?
For cucumbers?
They will not eat cucumbers that are slightly bitter because of a hadith which says that the Prophet one time ate it and he said, it's too bitter. So, now this is an addition. There are some hadiths that prohibit extra food and so on. And this causes a lot of wastage of natural resources. But now how about this? Some food that is good, but it just happened that it was dedicated to an idol. Well, this is a prohibited also, because it involves, I think, the principle of shirk or idol worship.
With permission from the creator.
Yeah, if I would like also to mention something very interesting. We don't have it in the States, but I've traveled a lot. There are some Chinese who embrace Islam, and they get the picture of their father, and they put it on the wall, and they have beautiful fruits, apples, imported, because we don't have this in our country, apples, oranges, and they put this in front of the picture, and they bow down to the picture of the parents and so on.
They do this to Santa Claus, they leave cookies and milk.
But in this case it is what you call ancestor worship. But it's a transition. These are, sometimes one cannot be very hard on these new converts to Islam, because they are passing through a transition or transitory period from a form of quote-unquote paganism to Islam. And but I personally think it's a waste of good food. Put it in the picture of a dead father or grandfather. So, and in some ways it's even possible that this falls under this rule, that they have been offered to in the name of someone else besides Allah. And the thinking of some of the ulama in our country is that the fact that these fruits are offered to a dead ancestor and has not been offered to Allah Himself, being a form of ancestral, a kind of a pagan worship, the ulama says, just convince the old men not to put those fruits so that all of us can have a share in it. And we were successful in convincing some of the Chinese and so on. But I think the question here is the matter of symbolism. This is the uncompromising monotheism of Islam. However, I think personally, this is just an opinion, if one is in danger of starvation, then maybe, without having the intention of transgressing, as the Imam Al-Ghazali says, between two evils, starving and eating a little pork to live in order to pray, better once the starvation is through. These are two evils. We have to choose the lesser evil. In other cases, it's not deliberate. We know as a matter of fact that when we Muslims travel, and people know this happens in Asia, especially among Christians, they know that we are Muslims, and we tell them we cannot eat pork. Yes, they say yes. We know as a matter of fact that they sometimes make fun. They throw a piece of pork. That's done in the army. I know this piece has been brought to my attention. Among soldiers, they put pieces of pork and give it to the Muslims and say, this is very good, it has no pork. And when the Muslims say, oh, this is very nice food, then they all laugh behind their back. Now, there is no sin for these Muslims, right, but it is very, very malicious. And I say, the harm is not upon the Muslim who is innocent. It's among those who are malicious. And there is there's no sin in it. And Quran says it very clear. Without being malicious or deliberate, then he incurs no sin. Well, I cannot mention the other verses that may we can help us here. That it appears that for some time the Jews were prohibited from certain kinds of food as a kind of discipline or punishment from Allah. I think you remember this, we discussed this. But it's very interesting because the Quran mentions that when Christ came, he said that one need not follow that anymore. I cannot, I don't have my notes with me, but it is very interesting. Sister Laila was showing me a recipe of chicken liver. Now this is very interesting. I hope I'm not, it seems like gossiping, but it will show us certain insight. Sister Mariam gave me a recipe wherein you can mix chicken liver with chicken fat. But in the Jewish recipe, they use butter, although that comes from an animal. In other words, the Jews never fry meat with oil or fat of the same animal. The Jews will not boil meat with milk. This is haram to them. The Jews will not fry meat with calf's fat or with chicken fat. They will use olive oil or vegetable oil. The Jews also will not eat food that is combined, like chicken meat and lamb. They don't combine. Or beef and lamb. No, it must be only one of the kinds. In other words, it has become very, very neurotic. And we know that this is a law in society, unlike the proverb that says that a rolling stone gathers no moss. But in society it's different. As a social institution grows older, it begins to acquire more moss. These are the barnacles, like the sheep. When a sheep travels longer, it acquires more barnacles. And social institutions gather more and more barnacles. And so these religious prohibitions become more and more and more involved. And this is what has happened to Islam. Without permission from Allah Himself. 169 says, He directs you towards vice, that is the devil. And the devil also makes us invent lies and attribute them to God. So our ulama, either they're not thinking well, and sometimes they're not really malicious, but they're not well trained, they begin to give us so many prohibitions that these religious duties become more and more difficult for some people, that the time will come, they get so fed up, they go